And it's not just about knowing how birth works, the ABCs of how babies come out of bodies. It's not about knowing medical procedures. It's about connecting with people on a soul level, because you are seeking to be invited into the most important and intimate day for a family.
Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. Ashley and I are here today to talk about the Doula Education Series that's starting, April 6th in a month and a half. Because last night I had a doula circle in person at my house that was so deep, so rich, so delicious. Ashley, I'm so sorry you weren't there. It was phenomenal. And I had one of my mentor doulas who was here from Maine visiting, and she was kind of the elder of the group. She's been attending births for over 50 years. She even has 2 probably coming up this year. So there was just a wealth of knowledge in that room, and also a lot of new energy from newer doulas. And several questions came up about what is covered in the series. Why is it different than the regular training? Why do I need the regular training first? Although everyone in the room had regular training. And one of the reasons I feel like we have put this together, obviously when you come out of training, you have a basic understanding of what birth is. It's a crash course. It's your basic knowledge. Obviously, we want you to supplement it with books. They want you to supplement it with books and handouts and stuff like that. But one of the disadvantages that we have with birth is that we aren't all raised in the same village. So when we're raised in the same village, we see birth all the time. We know what's expected. We're kind of raised the same. We have the same values. Everything's the same in our city. We don't have that anymore. We are way spread out. Our families are all different. We don't have a basic understanding and a trust of what the birth experience is and how our bodies work in it. And we all have completely different filters when it comes to that. So when we go to a generic training that gives you the birth basics, basically, it doesn't cover all the emotional and intellectual layers that you need to sort through in order to not provide accidental trauma to your families, not to get triggered to accidentally traumatize yourself and not know where that's coming from, and to have the longevity to create a beautiful career while helping families and more families explore the depths of who they are and push their edges. And that's why we have this doula training.
Yeah, I think it's like we say all the time, if there's a tagline for this series, it's connection is everything. Every podcast we do, we somehow work into it. Connection is everything. Because I remember coming out of my basic doula training excited, but I knew in my heart that I was ill-equipped to serve, right? But I had this hunger, this desire to help families and work with families, and that allowed me to overcome what felt like this huge deficit in skills and preparation. And I was not even remotely cognizant of just how much of a deficit I was in going into this work. And when I really started getting into it, working with families and realizing that this desire to work with these families was driving me towards community, towards seeking other education, I realized that it's because this is about connecting. And there really is so few careers on this planet that are so driven by connection and connecting with other people. And it's not just about knowing how birth works, the ABCs of how babies come out of bodies. It's not about knowing medical procedures. It's about connecting with people on a soul level, because you are seeking to be invited into the most important and intimate day for a family. And yet you're coming into it looking for this invitation without deep exploration of who you are, of why you're in this work, of what your wounds are, of what your gifts are. And I think that when this series was created, it was out of that recognition for these doulas need so much more. They need this soul exploration of who they are and why they're doing this. And they need this deep training in how to connect with other people. And every aspect of this series is about connection. It's about learning how to deeply connect with people. It's learning how to trust connections, how to let go of connections that are not meant for you, and how to explore your life connections that led you to this point of choosing this deep, intimate work that is so difficult, that is so precious and so beautiful, but literally one of the hardest careers you could ever choose. Why? Why are you here? Why are you seeking this? What led you to this point? And I realized going through it just so many incredible things about myself, about who I was as a woman, as a partner, as a parent, as a child. And I was a different doula when I came out the other side of it. And I realized looking back on it and now teaching it that really that's what it's all about. It's about finding connection and really like holding and recognizing how sacred and intimate birth is and the role that doulas play in it. And it's more than just, well, I learned how to do massage and what I should have in my doula bag. That's not enough to sustain this career. And why connection is so critical has everything to do with the way our society is set up now and why so many of us are so lost when it comes to connection. And I think a big part of what has driven Care and I into the connection business is the fact that when Care was talking about our villages, right? We used to live in villages and we used to know a maximum of 100 people in our whole lifetimes. And so everything was intimate, everything was connected, everything was interconnected, and you didn't really have strangers in your lives, right? It was all people that you knew from the time you were born to the time you died was the same little village. And the world is not that way anymore. There are 8 billion people on the planet. You are going to meet hundreds, if not thousands, of people in your life, as well as being accessible via the internet and media to millions of other people potentially over the course of your lifetime. We are more connected, plugged in to people than we have ever been in the history of humanity. And yet we are
surface. It's surface connection, not
we are
connection.
The least connected we've ever been in terms of trust, in terms of deeper relationships.
One of the things that which was so sexy last night, as we were talking about the topic in that doula circle happened to be how do we sabotage ourselves from moving forward and creating what we really want and what gifts we're reborn with, etc. And deep conversations. And as we started talking about it and unraveling why we don't go forward and who has hurt us and all that kind of stuff, it comes down to trust. And when we don't have solid trust in who we are, what we can count on, we try and control. We're in survival mode, right? My life was like that. And I still argue with myself on control because I need to allow and receive instead of organize and move forward and take that masculine effort in my life instead of let things flow and be in ease, which is what I'm really good at when I'm in my power. And as we start to dive into why we don't trust and where we don't trust, that's when we find who we are and how we can support these families. If we don't trust, but we're asking them to trust, that's dumb. That doesn't even make sense. And our filters around birth and trust are marred. We can't be a pure vessel if we don't understand where we're coming from. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just where we're at and sorting that through, especially if we've never been to therapy. And I'm not saying therapy is the answer to everything, but I'm saying therapy is the answer to everything. We need to find somebody on the outside to help us sort that out. And sometimes that's why we come into birth work. It is sitting in circle with other women and birth workers that helps us kind of mirror what we're trying to get across and be heard with, because we're not going to get that in the birth room. It's not the birth room or the parents' responsibility to hear us and listen to us where we're not getting it in other parts of our lives. And we may not even know we're doing that. So we're like, yeah, we're here to help. We're here to solve. And, someone last night brought up, I'm a people pleaser and I want to save everybody. She came through the series about a year ago, and she said, I don't have to do that. I don't have to birth anybody's baby. I don't have to be responsible for their choices. I can just love them. And she said, I've really come to understand that I'm a really good friend. And she said, I'm connecting with these people on such a deep level. We're still in contact. We still love each other. And we are an extended village, obviously we've got boundaries and all that kind of stuff going, but understanding where you're coming from first so that you don't try and get your needs met in these kind of relationships allows you to be the healer and the helper with how you're supporting these babies coming onto the planet. Because bottom line is you're witnessing a baby's birth, not a mother's birth, so to say. And yes, that is happening, but parents have choice. They are autonomous human beings with choice. It has nothing to do with us. That is their life that they're choosing for, but we're there to witness for the baby. And sometimes connecting with that baby is the only thing that's going to get you through that birth, because everything feels out of control. What do you think it feels like for the baby? Holy crap, you guys are the adults in the room. I'm just trying to get out here, right? And allowing that connection to say, hey, buddy, I need you to tell me what your parents need right now because I'm lost in this moment. That's the kind of stuff that you learn to sort through when you realize that you don't have control in it. You have an open healing space to help with it, but you are there to witness for the baby. And that is part of the series. So yes, we do cover social media and how to get yourself out there and how to feel yourself being seen. I still have a problem being seen, and I'm seen all the time. We do cover business aspects and all that kind of stuff and how to increase that flow. We do talk about money conversations and how to understand that it's just energy and that you can have boundaries with it. We obviously talk about boundaries, but it is so much more about getting to know who you are as a human and what limitations you have and what excesses you have, because we all have them. And I was very lucky to have a lot of amazing mentors along the way that I took copious notes with, and that saved me. It literally saved me, because you do flounder when you come out. Unless you join an agency and you just kind of go with the plan and whatever, great, that works for some people. But if you want to know how to connect, you got to connect with yourself first.
In so many other areas of business, we are selling like a skill set or an item or some type of product. But in this job, we come out of our doula training and we realize very quickly that we're selling ourselves. And in order to confidently be able to sit in front of a family and say, I want to walk alongside you during your baby's birth, you have to know yourself and you have to know your value. I love what you just said about the doula recognizing her value as a good friend. Instead of saying, I'm a people pleaser and that's my deficit, I am a good friend. I am an amazing companion. I'm an incredible support person. And by seeing her value, that is what she can share with families. And I think that is what most doulas come out of this series with, is a recognition of who they are and what makes them valuable to families. Yeah, all the other stuff, the business stuff is great. It's super important. We definitely work on all of that stuff. But coming out of this series, knowing what your value is and what kind of doula you are and who you will be to families is the most incredible confidence boost for you. Because in what other business do you sell yourself? Yourself, your voice, your ideas, your hands, right?
Not just your certificate and your master's degree and all of that kind of stuff. That's secondary to who you actually are.
This is the most personal, most intimate business. I mean, there's only so few other businesses where I can think of this, like therapists potentially, right? Where it is soul work, what is being done, and what you are selling is your ability to be present and the type of presence that they want to have. And if you don't know who you are, and you don't know what your value is, and you don't understand deeply what you bring to the table, how are you supposed to sell that to a family and say, invite me into your birth space? And so I really think that if I was to sum up the two things that define this series, it is connection and value in yourself. That you will learn how to connect with people, how to connect with community, how to connect with families, how to connect with babies, how to connect with babies that you are serving.
It's pretty sexy. It's pretty
amazing.
freaking amazing.
And you will learn just how valuable you are. You're not going to gain your value through this series. You are going to learn what your value is. And by learning that, that's your sales pitch. That's who you are. That's how you're going to learn to turn around and sell who you are. You're not comparing yourself to the next doula. You're not trying to be like this other doula. You're valuing who you are.
And I'm going to give you the exercise that we used last night because it was so brilliant and so beautiful. It was a full moon too. Like, it was just gushy. Like, all the hippie parts were there. And Jo, my mentor doula, was a hippie. Like, we always call her the topless hippie. She was amazing. She's not doing that now at 70 something. But one of the exercises that we did, we had 3 value related questions. I want you to go back to when you were as young as you can remember. And I want you to think of 3 inherent gifts that you brought to the earth in this life school to share with other people. Who are you? This is something about you. And some of the things that were brought up, like one of the doulas said, I'm not going to give names because I didn't ask permission to spread her stuff out, but she said I was nurturing. I remember from being 3 years old, wanting to hold babies, be around babies, love babies. And her family reflected that, like, oh my gosh, you were all about babies. That's all you cared about. And she said, nurturing is one of my inherent qualities. I am so good at it. And I do it in my life now. I do it at work. I do it with friends. I value nurturing and loving them without taking their stuff on. And I'm non-competitive. I know that there's room for all of us at the table, and I want to bring everybody in. And I was like, these are all great doula qualities, right? As she's talking. And, one of mine is the ability to read past the words. I hear what you're saying, but I'm feeling, could it be this? And that's one of my inherent qualities. And as we began to kind of unravel those, everyone's like, that's the basis of who I am. And then we went into, what do you want to release? What do you want to keep? What's holding you back from what you want to do? And who hurt you? And as we were all talking, and we tried to just sum it up with one person, like just say the word, but we all had to talk about it. It was this person and this is why and blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't trauma dumping at all, actually. It was just us sharing a part of our deep story, because all of us have stories that we don't get to talk about as much as we need to. And doula after doula went, wow, yeah, all of that. Oh my gosh, that was my mom. Exactly what you said about your aunt. Oh my gosh. And as we talk in circle, which the reason that we gather in circle, and we have since the beginning of time, is everybody has an equal space. Everybody can see each other. You still honor the elders in the circle, but you all have a place. You all have a voice at that table. So as we're all sitting in circle, we realize how similar we are, and how similar our wounds are, and how much we need that reflection. And how did you heal from that part? Because I thought I was the only one. No, I did this and this. And you see the conversation open up. Now imagine if you're in a community full of doulas, all exploring this for the first time and understanding that they were born into some of these patterns, that they carried these patterns from the womb, from their mother, from their grandmother, that they don't even know where they came from. And so they valued themselves a little less because of what they inherited as they came in, which wasn't their shit. Now they're understanding it. Now they're exploring it. Now tears are running down their face. Now they're releasing their fears because it wasn't their stuff to begin with. As we're healing as a collective, as a group, and we're building community like that, how much better are we going to be for these families? We hear them on a different level because we see them with the same kind of wounding that we have possibly, and how can we offer them our unique gifts while holding space for the wounds that they already have. Understanding that these beautiful families that we are interviewing with are complete strangers to us. We don't know their past 35 years. We don't know what they inherited, and now we've got a partner involved. We don't know what's going on there either. Everybody presents themselves differently in an interview, on the phone, in the birth space. It's not our responsibility either way, but understanding that we are so similar and we've healed some of our stuff. We don't bring our stuff into the room and get offended or feel a loss of control or any of that, because it's witness time. It's not our stuff. And I think because we blend the family of origin, our release patterns, our responses versus our reactions, all that kind of emotional stuff that birth work can trigger, we thread it through the social media, how we put things out, imposter syndrome, how we overcome that, and how we live with it. Because I still have it, and I've been doing it for 15 years. What are we coming to the table with, and how are we helping each other get through it? And Ashley, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts about everybody being trained the same way, and why we want doulas to come into the series with other people in their community, because they are reflecting differently about births at interviews as backups to each other, because they have the same basis. They've gone so vulnerable with each other that they know where they're coming from. And it is a different kind of connection between the people that you're working with, which are your colleagues. You're mostly solo in the birth room, but you're not when you have backups and you have people in community that you're working with.
Yeah, it creates a ripple effect, right? Where the people who are doing this work together and getting this education together are going out and spreading it to other doulas around them and helping other doulas explore these different aspects of themselves and improve their skills. And then it ripples out to the families where they see, oh my gosh, look at this continuity of language between all these doulas we've interviewed, and they all work together and there's no competition. And I feel like I'm actually hiring somebody that I can deeply trust to come into my birth room, because I can see in them that they love what they're doing, that they're not competitive, that they're not afraid. And I got that from each doula that I interviewed, because they're all on the same page. And just think of the births that we're impacting, the births of those babies, by the impact we're having on families, by the impact that we're having on each other, when we're all doing the same work, learning the same things, and getting that confidence together as a community.
And I think, going back to what you said, we come into an interview space and a birth space with value and confidence. And that we don't have the experience for that as we come into birth work. And there were some doulas there last night that haven't done births and they're afraid to jump in. And I'm like, we've all been there. I didn't have a birth either, and I did it. And someone else says, you just have to jump in. I've done 15 births since July, which is a lot for, starting off. But your confidence grows on the experience level. But when you get some outside help with your value and the weight of how beautiful that is, because you are so valuable already, and your confidence grows from that, and you're speaking from that place. So not only you're selling yourself in an interview, you own who you are. And, I always want to go back. Why are you in birth work? It's not to make $1 million by next week. It's not to make a 6-figure income in 3 years, because the rarity of that and the hard work enough to put into that, it far outweighs you're going to be attending births for a while rather than making 6 figures. Like, I'm not even going to blow smoke up your ass. It's just, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because I never put boundaries on people. But you're in birth work to do some deep healing work, whether you want to pick that mantle up or not, but that will help keep you in the work and not being burned out by the work. And we've had doulas come through our series and get what they needed in the series and never do a birth again. And that's changes their trajectory in how they went back to being a parent or going into life. Like, I'm cool with that. I don't know what everybody gets from the series. I want it to be of value and intrinsic connection, because I think that's what we're missing. And I can guarantee that's what we do in it. And I think I can't make you take any steps towards deep connection and doing some hard, heavy emotional work, but I can guarantee you that we can hold you through it, because we've all done it, and we've done it together, and we do it every single series. And those people that connect through the series and then to others who have done that work, it makes a huge difference in how you walk in community.
It makes me think about the last class of each series that we do, and how emotional it is, and how intimate it is, and how each doula shares kind of their journey and their takeaways, but they can't do it without crying because they've gone through such a deep transformation going through it and coming out the other side as not only a better doula, but this new, improved, empowered version of themselves. And especially thinking about the last series and just what some of the girls shared. And we were all just crying, and because it was like we all were changed. And that's the thing too, is for Kara and I, each series that we do, we are changed and impacted by the people that we meet, the people that come through the series. And it's so individual to each person, and getting to witness that transformation for them and hear what they each got out of it is just like the most beautiful thing.
Well, and it's night and day. Like sometimes you hear and you're like, you got that out? Because we walk from such different paths. And, you know, we're not going back to those olden days of the villages. What did Dax say about that?
We are not designed for this large group of connections that we have, this surface level millions of people that we're connected to. We're designed for intimate connections. Our brain, our neurons, everything, how we're put together is designed for connection. And so we want to lean into that and utilize that. And especially if you're choosing a career that is connection oriented,
Heart centered.
you gotta be ready to do the work to get raw and intimate, or you will not be able to sustain in this because it's gonna get real really fast.
Yeah. How do you hold those vulnerable moments in birth?
There's no way to be a surface level doula. There's no way. You cannot, it's impossible. You will not be able to sustain.
I wouldn't say it's impossible. I think what can do, if that's how you're holding the space, is you're unknowingly causing harm because you're not valuing or understand how to hold such vulnerability because you're not willing to go there yourself. And I am the first to admit my walls in certain areas are super, super thick. And I will say those survival walls that I needed to grow up with my mom get turned on every once in a while. And I am distanced enough to know when those are turned on and that I need to take a break. But I didn't early on, and I didn't even know it was happening. I just knew, whoa, I have to survive this like this because that's how I'd always done it. And every birth is different, and everything is going to show you a different lesson. And we want you to walk through that with grace and also the understanding that it may devastate you. And you can come back from it. Because the transformation is a continual process, and you hold space differently when you're willing to transform and push your edges.
Yeah, and I mean, the work itself is that there's so much beauty in birth, but there's also going to be trauma and loss and things that we witness that are heartbreaking. And if you are not willing to really explore how you handle those things, it will thrust you out of the work. You will not be able to continue doing it because this is real. What this work is. We can talk like it's essential oils and massage and that kind of stuff, but we're talking about babies coming to this planet, to this plane, and we're talking about people giving birth in the most transformative experience of their life, bringing a child onto this planet. This is not light. This will never be light. And so you have to recognize that in order to be able to stay on this path. Because just like babies and birth is unpredictable, the things you witness and the things that happen and unfold in front of you cannot be predicted. And every birth is different. And you need to be equipped to navigate that.
I think we've done a good job explaining kind of what we do. So understanding that the emotional aspect is threaded through every part of our business, and business training is one of my favorite things to do. I love to dive deep on the nuances of how to grow and excel and get yourself out there and use the keywords and all that kind of stuff. I love stuff like that. It's super sexy to me, but all of it is super sexy to me. And the emotional aspect, the connection, it's what I'm here on the planet to do. I am a connector. That is one of my inherent gifts. And also holding the space and moving past those words. So when you're going through the manual for this entire program, all of what we've just talked about is woven through it. Even our social media masterclasses, even the medical language masterclass, because there is a bigger, broader spiritual aspect, energetic aspect to birth that is just not able to be covered in a 2 to 3 week doula training, or let alone a weekend training. So anyway, we start in April. We would love for you to join us. You can fill out the intake form on the Stand Store in any of the locations or on my website. And we're going to be dropping some more bonus episodes coming up this month for World Doula Week. So I hope you'll join us.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.